evening and welcome to the news tonight. Your one stop for the day's top stories from India and across the world. I'm Tracy Shilchi and here are the headlines. India and Uzbekistan signed key agreements on day one of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Central Asia visit, but all eyes on whether Modi breaks the ice with Nawaz Sharif on the sidelines of a meet in Russia. Vyapam deaths continue in Madhya Pradesh. A trainee sub-inspector selected through the state board exams is found dead, but the government denies that the deaths are linked to the scam. Landmark judgment by the Supreme Court. Unwed mothers can now be the sole legal guardians of their children. Disclosing the father's identity not mandatory. And Greece votes no to austerity in referendum. Eurozone debates what next as Greece's financial system teeters on the brink of a meltdown. Our top story, India and Uzbekistan inked key agreements today to enhance bilateral ties on day one of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Central Asia. Apart from the five-nation tour, the Prime Minister will also be attending the BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization summits in Russia, where he is likely to meet his Pakistani counterpart, Nawaz Sharif. Here are the details.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has begun his 8-day visit to Central Asia on Monday as he arrived in Uzbekistan. Energy security is top on Prime Minister's priority list as he aims to expand India's ties during the visit to five strategically positioned, resource-rich nations. He met Uzbekistan President Islam Karimov in Tashkent after he was accorded a ceremonial welcome. The two sides signed key agreements to enhance cooperation in various fields.
In recent years, India and Uzbekistan have built a strategic partnership on the foundation of mutual respect and shared interests. This includes expanding economic cooperation, combating terrorism, advancing stability in the region, and promoting regional integration. I share President Karimov's desire to raise the level of our economic engagement. I conveyed to him that there is a strong interest in Indian business to invest in Uzbekistan. We also discussed steps needed to implement the contract of supply of uranium from Uzbekistan signed earlier.
After a one-day trip, Modi will go to Kazakhstan on Tuesday. He will then travel to Russia on 8th of July to attend the SCO summit in Ufa as well as the annual BRICS summit. India hopes to get the membership of the six-nation group comprising of China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. India and Pakistan are currently the observers.
India had formally applied for membership of the SCO prior to the summit in Dushanbe in September 2014. The only update to offer since then is that the SCO foreign ministers met in June in Moscow, and they have made a positive recommendation regarding India's membership to the summit.
Modi is also likely to meet his Pakistan counterpart Nawaz Sharif on the sidelines of the SCO summit. Though there has been no official confirmation, Pakistan has said that Sharif will hold important bilateral meetings with key leaders. If the two leaders meet, it would be their first face-to-face interaction since the two leaders shook hands in Kathmandu at the SAARC summit last year. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, for more on this, on how crucial the region is, of course, for India, and also what to expect of that possible meeting between Modi and Nawaz Sharif at Ufa, we've got Yatish Rajawat, who's a senior journalist, joining us from the capital here. And we also have our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who's joining us from Ufa at this point. Akhilesh, if I could come to you first, give us a sense really of what you're getting from your sources there. Is that meeting likely? Because, of course, the external affairs ministries of both the countries not confirming any meeting as of now between the two leaders.
See, Tracy, it is always a million-dollar question whether Prime Minister meets Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, or not. But what is common ground? The common ground at a time when Prime Minister is moving from one country to another in Central Asian countries, and Russia You see, the beyond Russia and Central Asian countries, there is the threat of ISIS, a new terrorist organization all over the world that is threatening not only Russia but also China, also Pakistan will be threatened because Pakistan has already been suffering from Taliban and Al Qaeda conglomerates. So there is a common ground between all the SCO nations that this new force of terrorism should be contained. And this another other than that, there is a SCO cooperation thing, and there in that connectivity is one of the major issues. China also wants connectivity with all the Asian nations, and same is the case of India. And for that, Pakistan has to be tamed in one way or other, so that Pakistan, if Pakistan is giving way to China, Pakistan should give way to other Asian countries also. And in that point of time, I think that if this meeting happens, that will be very important for both India, Pakistan, and China, for other Central Asian countries. So I think if Prime Minister meets Nawaz Sharif, it will be a win-win game for both India, Pakistan, and other countries of the region, Tracy.
All right, Akhilesh Suman, thanks so much for joining us, reporting there from Ufa. We do, of course, still have Yatish Rajawat with us. Yatish, we're, of course, talking about that meeting. Do both leaders, of course, break the ice? How crucial it is, not just, showing really, globally how your relations are, but bilaterally as well, that the Cold War or such, you could say, between India and Pakistan, especially after that Myanmar attack and how the ministers reacted and how Pakistan reacted, how crucial it is for both leaders to break the ice?
I think, Tracy, this is the myopia that Indian media has. We think that a meeting or shaking of hands or a signal between the Prime Minister of India or Pakistan is the most important thing that is supposed to happen. It is not, even if they do meet, there is no agenda. There has been no preparatory work done by the bureaucrats. So, I mean, while there are 5 other nations that he's going to, and it's far more important, the relationship with Turkmenistan, what he does on the gas reserves and the gas pipeline, I think is a far more important issue than whether he gets to shake hands with Nawaz Sharif or not, or even gets to shake hands with Nawaz Sharif. I don't think so it's going to go anywhere. So, somewhere we lose the priorities of our, in our debate or discussion about what is actually important. And if you remember, this visit is not, it does not happen overnight. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Sushma Swaraj visited these countries in April.
Yes.
She visited these countries in April. She laid down the foundation for what we wanted from these countries, and we want more from this country than we'll ever get from Pakistan. For instance, Turkmenistan is the 4th largest natural gas provider in the world, and we've been trying to build a pipeline which of course passes through Afghanistan and Pakistan. Therefore, they are important from that pipeline point of view, and I'm sure that this will be discussed if both these countries get part of SCO. So Kazakhstan again, is a very large country. We've had, we have an interesting cultural relationship with some of these countries. Our music, our films are very popular across these Central Asian countries. India is seen as an aspirational country by these Central Asian nations. We have a running democracy. They look up on that part of it. They have a very controlled society at the moment. Media is controlled there. So, I mean, there's so many variants and factors here. Like, for instance, we've been providing medical aid and medical services and medicines to these countries for a very long time.
All right, Yatish, you of course talking about the Central Asian countries and how
into India.
Yes, and how India can really tap into what they have already established there, and what like you were pointing out, common interests that we do share. But apart from that, vis-a-vis China is of course very crucial to all these countries. Is that something India is looking at as well? The Modi government trying to cement its relationship a bit further, better with these countries who are of course quite dependent on China as well.
It's interesting, for the last 20 years, there has been no Prime Minister who has actually visited all these countries. This is the first time, I think, after Narasimha Rao that somebody Indian Prime Minister is going to this country. In the last 20 years, China has made impressive inroads into all these countries. They have built infrastructure there. They set up their businesses, their companies gone in there. They have tapped into the resources of these countries. We have somehow, for some unexplained reason, been obsessed with only Pakistan and Afghanistan, and we never looked beyond that. There is a partnership that is possible with these countries. So I'm very hopeful, and I'm very hopeful that something positive and something strong, particularly on the uranium side,
Yes.
oil side, and the gas side, will emerge in this visit of the government of the Prime Minister.
All right, Yatish Rajawat, thanks so much for joining us as always and
Tracy.
sharing those details with us here on the news tonight. Meanwhile, let's get you more news. And in fact, from India, the Enforcement Directorate has issued summons to ex-IPL chief Lalit Modi in a money laundering case. The former IPL chief has been asked by the ED to explain the charges against him. According to reports, the ED has set a 3-month deadline for Modi to respond to the summons. The Enforcement Directorate had filed a case under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, naming Modi in 2012, 2 years after the board of the Cricket Control lodged a complaint. At the top international story, Greece's Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis today sacrificed his seat just hours after Greeks rebuffed offers by its creditors for a bailout. Greece is now ready for negotiations with its creditors as a stunned European Union leadership called for an emergency meet. It is still not clear whether Greece will quit the Eurozone after an overwhelming 61% voted no in the referendum.
Hours after the Greeks voted resoundingly to reject the bailout measures proposed by international creditors, Greece's Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis resigned on Monday. The outspoken minister announced his resignation on Twitter, saying he felt his departure would pave way for a resolution to the country's debt crisis. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras is now determined to reach a last-ditch compromise with the European leaders.
What I imagine it happened is that Yanis wants to facilitate the effort of the Prime Minister to give a new boost to the negotiations. Our Prime Minister wants to go there with the Greece united and ask to our partners to make similar concessions to those we have done.
Tsipras is expected to name a new minister to replace Varoufakis. Stunned European leaders have called for a summit in Brussels on Tuesday to discuss their next move. They say the no vote has only made the discussions more difficult and widened the gap in the negotiations, but the group will aim to keep Greece in the Eurozone. The finance minister said the reforms are inevitable and they will wait for the initiatives of the Greek authorities.
Die herkennen we natuurlijk ook. Het brengt ons echter niet meteen dichter bij een oplossing. Sterker nog, wanneer voorstellen worden afgewezen, maakt het dat alleen maar moeilijker. Tegelijkertijd ligt er een verzoek om over een ESM-programma te praten. Dus we gaan nu eerst even het Nederlandse kabinet overleggen. Morgen Eurogroep en een leidersbijeenkomst van de eurozone. Dan gaan we kijken of we het stap voor stap proces nog kunnen redden.
Wenn Griechenland im Euro bleiben will, muss die griechische Regierung schnell ein substanzielles Angebot machen, das über ihre bisherige Bereitschaft hinausgeht und auch durch die 18 anderen Euro-Staaten akzeptiert werden können.
The European Central Bank is also expected to meet to discuss whether to raise its emergency cash support for Greek banks. The vote rejecting the bailout package leaves Greece in uncharted waters, risking a banking collapse that could force it out of the euro. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Back home now, another death of a person linked to the Madhya Pradesh Vyapam scam. A woman trainee sub-inspector recruited through that employment exam was found dead in mysterious circumstances. The Chief Minister has denied that it had anything to do with the high-profile scam, but the opposition and victims' families are crying foul, with an estimated 34 to 47 people connected to the case having died so far.
Stepping up its attack against the ruling BJP in Madhya Pradesh, the Congress is demanding the resignation of Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan over the Vyapam scam investigations. The BJP, however, is blocking demands for a CBI probe, even as it maintains that investigation carried by the state agencies is both fair and effective.
जिस एक्सटेंट तक इस एसआईटी को जांच करनी चाहिए नहीं कर पा रही है, जिस समय हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट यह समझेगा, तो हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट जिस दिन आदेश देगा उस दिन सीबीआई जांच के लिए पूरी तरह से हमारी मध्य प्रदेश की सरकार तैयार है।
मैं पूरी तरह से शिवराज जी के साथ में हूं। मैं शिवराज जी के लिए भी चिंतित हूं, क्योंकि वो इतने संवेदनशील व्यक्ति हैं कि वो स्वयं बहुत अवसाद और दुख के दौर से गुजर रहे होंगे इतने सारे लोगों की मृत्यु की खबर सुनकर। कांग्रेस के लोगों से भी अपील करूंगी कि उनको जरूर उठाना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो विपक्ष हैं। उनका धर्म बनता है कि वो इस मसले को उठाए, लेकिन इसमें राजनीति ना हो और भेदभाव ना हो।
In the case of TV journalist Akshay Singh's death on Saturday, state authorities said they were waiting for the investigation report on the Viscera samples from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
46 से ज़्यादा मौतें हो चुकी हैं और सारे के सारे लोग या तो गवाह हैं या तो एक्यूज्ड हैं या तो विसल ब्लोअर हैं और उनके सबकी एक मिस्टीरियस सर्कमस्टांसेस में मौत हो रही है। ये बहुत चिंता का विषय।
There should be an independent CBI probe conducted into this whole sordid affair under the supervision of the Supreme Court.
Accusing the Congress of playing politics, the BJP said even the death of Jabalpur Medical College Dean Arun Sharma on Sunday was not related to the case.
हमने इस केस को जो है इस केस ऑफ अननेचुरल डेथ में हमने एक डॉक्टर से पोस्टमार्टम ना करवाकर एक मेडिकल बोर्ड बनवाई है और मेडिकल बोर्ड जो है इसका पोस्टमार्टम कर रही थी।
Meanwhile, another Vyapam-linked death was reported on Monday. A 25-year-old woman trainee sub-inspector was found dead in a lake. She had got into the police force through an exam conducted by Vyapam.
सागर की जिस मृत्यु की आप बात कर रहे हैं वो दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है, दुखद है, लेकिन मैं पूरी जिम्मेदारी से ये कह रहा हूं कि उस दुखद घटना का व्यापम या व्यापम की जांच से कोई संबंध नहीं है।
On Monday, the Supreme Court admitted a petition seeking the removal of Madhya Pradesh Governor Ram Naresh Yadav. Filed by a group of lawyers, the petition alleges the involvement of Yadav in the irregularities in the Madhya Pradesh Professional Examination Board exam. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
With that, a quick break here, but still ahead, fresh flood alert in Assam, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh as the Met Office forecasts heavy rains in the next few days.
PM begins 8-day Central Asia tour. India's energy needs a focus area on this trip. What role does India seek in these countries? Watch the big picture at 9:30 PM on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Now, in a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court today ruled that an unwed mother can be the sole legal guardian of a child without the consent of the father. The ruling said that it was not required of the mother to disclose the identity of the father and include him as a party to the guardianship petition in certain cases. It observed that the best interest of the child required to do away with the procedural requirement of issuing a notice to the father when a guardianship petition is moved. The court was adjudicating a plea by a woman who challenged the statutory necessity of involving the father of her child in a guardianship petition, even though she never married him.
Main argument was that the mother had taken the entire responsibility. Father was nowhere on the scene. It was in the best interest of the child that he is taken care of by the parent who is there. A father, a man who has just fathered the child and never come back to ever see him also, it cannot be a mandatory requirement in the case of an unwed mother to serve such a father.
Well, this is yet another step by Supreme Court to support the victimized and exploited women.
Meanwhile, the Women and Child Development Ministry has formed a committee to examine the UNICEF's Child Survey report. It has been told to submit its report within a week. This after the ministry was criticized for holding back state-wise findings of the UNICEF report. In 2014, the ministry uploaded national-level findings of the report on its website, but put on hold state-level findings, claiming that it did not agree with the methodology followed by the UNICEF. The UNICEF report indicates a reduction in the immunization cover of children. On to weather now. In a sudden burst of rainfall across North India brought respite from the hot and humid conditions. However, normal life was paralyzed in the hill states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. A flood alert was issued in both states following the Met Department's forecast of heavy rains in the coming days as well.
Heavy rains lashed North India on Monday. National capital Delhi saw a brief spell that brought much-needed respite from the hot and humid weather in the city. However, heavy downpour disrupted normal life in the hill states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Torrential overnight rains killed 2 people in Uttarakhand and washed away several houses. Trees were uprooted in many places, causing landslides. Power and water supply was hit badly in large parts of the state. Following the weatherman's forecast of similar weather conditions in the next few days, Chief Minister Harish Rawat has directed all district authorities to remain vigilant. In Himachal Pradesh, a flood alert has been sounded. The Met Department has appealed to people to stay away from river banks.
आने वाले दिनों में भी जो बारिश है वो जारी रहेगी कम से कम जो 4-5 दिन लगातार जो बारिश हो सकती है और कुछ एक इलाकों में भारी बारिश होने की भी संभावना रहेगी.
We trying our best, keeping the finger crossed. और हम रेडी है किसी भी भगवान करे कोई दुर्घटना हो ना हो भगवान करे कोई त्रासदी न हो और फिर कुछ हो भी जाए हम उसको मीट करने के लिए पूरी तरह से तैयार हैं.
Meanwhile, in Assam, the flood situation turned grim after hours of incessant rains. As many as 65,000 people in 125 villages were badly affected. More than 3,800 hectares of crop area is submerged. At least 5 deaths have been reported so far from the region. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's get you more news from across the country in Nationwide. Another TDP legislator, S. Venkata Veerayya, was arrested in the Cash for Vote scam today. The Anti-Corruption Bureau arrested him after several hours of questioning. The legislator from Telangana had not appeared for questioning last month despite summons. He is the 4th person to be arrested so far in this case. Pakistani troops violated ceasefire in Jammu and Kashmir, targeting 6 border outposts in Sunday. Pakistani troops fired small arms and 82mm mortar shells, triggering panic among villagers. BSF troops retaliated, resulting in exchanges which continued till early on Monday. India and Bangladesh have launched a joint survey to record the choice of nationality of those residing in enclaves on the eastern border. Close to 52,000 people in 162 enclaves in each other's territories are awaiting citizenship after the two nations struck the historic land boundary deal. The survey is expected to be completed by the 23rd of July. Noted actor Pallavi Joshi has resigned as member of the FTII Society, pledging support to the students' agitation against the appointment of Gajendra Chauhan as its chief. The agitation entered the 25th day today, with the students boycotting academic work after talks last week with the Information and Broadcast Minister Arun Jaitley failed. More international news in a day ahead of the deadline for the Iran nuclear talks. US Secretary of State John Kerry says that the West will have to make hard choices to reach a deal. Both Iran and the West are still trying to iron out differences as soon as possible. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, in fact, said nothing is clear as of now.
At this point, this negotiation could go either way. If hard choices get made in the next couple of days and made quickly, we could get an agreement this week. But if they are not made, we will not.
Despite reports of progress in the Iran nuclear talks last week, the US Secretary of State John Kerry indicating that consensus is still some way ahead. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said differences still remain.
We want a good agreement, only a good agreement. And we're not going to shave anywhere at the margins in order just to get an agreement. Right now, we're aiming to try to finish this in the time frame that we've set out.
European Union's foreign policy chief and French foreign minister is in the Austrian capital for the last round of talks.
A couple of days we are here to check, to assess if a deal can be closed. And my message today is that if a deal can be closed, it's now. It's not time, the issue is political decisions that need to be taken now.
Toutes les cartes sont sur la table. La question principale est de savoir si les Iraniens vont accepter de prendre des engagements clairs sur ce qui n'a pas encore été clarifié.
The deadline for the Iran nuclear talks was extended to Tuesday after negotiators missed a June 30th deadline for the final agreement. The P5+1 group, the US, UK, France, China, Russia and Germany wants Iran to scale back sensitive nuclear activities to ensure it can't build a nuclear weapon. Iran wants international sanctions lifted in exchange for that. The major sticking points are how will sanctions be lifted and what will be the amount of nuclear capability that Iran can keep. The much-awaited deal could redefine relations between Iran and the West for years to come. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's get you some more international news in Global Buzz. 2 blasts hit the central Nigerian city of Jos, one at a restaurant and the other targeting a Muslim cleric who had disowned the Islamic militant group Boko Haram. Emergency officials have now put the death toll at 44 and say that 67 people were injured. The Philippines confirmed a second case of the deadly Middle East Respiratory Syndrome or MERS virus on Monday. The patient was identified as a man who arrived in Manila last month from Dubai. At least 7 others who came in close contact with him are under home quarantine. Pope Francis arrived in Ecuador on the first stop of a 7-day tour in South America. This is his second visit to the region since becoming pontiff in 2013. The Pope will spread the message for the weak and respect for an ailing planet. He will also travel to Bolivia and Paraguay. And with that, let's change tracks and get you some sporting action in Sports Beat. Indian leg spinner Karan Sharma has been ruled out of the Zimbabwe tour due to a fractured finger. The BCCI said there would not be a replacement for him. India will now have only 14 players for the 3 ODIs. In Sharma's absence, India will only have 2 spin options in off-spinner Harbhajan Singh and left-armer Akshay Patel. In Wimbledon, Serena Williams advanced to the quarterfinals after beating her elder sister Venus 6-4, 6-3. She will now next face either former world number 1 Victoria Azarenka of Belarus or rising Swiss talent Belinda Bencic in Tuesday's quarterfinal. 4th-seeded Russian Maria Sharapova also advanced, beating Zarina Diaz of Kazakhstan 6-4, 6-4. The Indo-Swiss pair of Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis stormed into the women's doubles quarterfinals. The top-seeded pair defeated the Spanish team of Garrigues and Santonia 6-4, 6-3 in just 66 minutes. In the men's doubles, India's Rohan Bopanna and his Romanian partner Florin Mergia defeated the pair of Max Mirny and Lucas Kubot 7-6, 6-7, 7-6, 7-6 to advance to the quarterfinals. The US lifted the FIFA Women's World Cup for the 3rd time after beating Japan 5-2 in the finals. Skipper Carly Lloyd scored a hat-trick in the gap of just 13 minutes in the first half. Lauren Holiday and Tobin Heath were the other goal scorers in this highest-scoring World Cup final. With this victory, US became the first nation to win the cup 3 times. And that's all we have for you on the news tonight from the entire team here. Good night.